Hi everyone. We are here at, on time as every week. Welcome to today's webinar on building robust SaaS processes to keep your company safe as your scale. We're gonna give a few more seconds to everyone to make sure they are connected. You have your audio working. You can see and listen to us properly. And after that, we'll kick off this webinar, which is the last webinar of the year for us. Okay, everybody ready? Well, my name is Marta. I'm part of the success team here at Cledara. Today, my colleague Katie, also from the success team, is joining me. And we are thrilled to have a special speaker that we'll introduce in a few seconds. I think we can get it started already. So today we will explore the critical aspects of managing SaaS processes to ensure the security and efficiency of your growing organization. As you can see there on the screen, we have our distinguished speaker for today's webinar that is none other than Nikesh Ashar. He's the head of IT here at Cledara, and he has a wealth of experience in the field. Nikesh brings a unique perspective on navigating the challenges and opportunities associated with scaling a company in the digital age. Hi, Nikesh. How are you today?
Hello. All good, thank you. Ready for this one?
Fantastic. Glad to hear that. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll show in a second. Yeah, that's the agenda we'll be covering today. We're gonna be talking about best processes to manage your SaaS and buy new tools. Then we'll be touching on approval flows, access requests, and onboarding. And of course, we'll be leaving some time for Q&A in the end. Okay. So, Nikesh, here's my first question. Why implementing processes to manage your SaaS?
Nice. Well, most startups that I've worked at have little or no process when it comes to managing SaaS at the scale that we do. Usually there's one card, it belongs to the owner, the CFO. It's sometimes there's a business card, quite often a personal like sort of debit card where all the company cash sits. And it just gets passed around the office or shared on Slack with no visibility on who owns what. And then as you grow, you kind of need someone to help you grow properly. That someone can be a person, you know, a team. In our case, it's Cledara. And then making sure you have good processes, like it'll save you a lot of time. So knowing what tools you're using, who's the access owner for what tool, etc. And then as you grow, keeping unification between tools will make sort of teamwork help a lot better. There's no point having, you know, half your team on Slack and the other half on Google Hangouts, or even with workload planning, having some people on Notion, some on Trello, some on Asana, and any other tool that you can think of, and people just sign up for whatever they want with the CFO's credit card. And then most companies, as they grow, especially if they're SaaS businesses and they want to start selling to larger companies, they need some form of compliance. If it's ISO 27001, Cyber Essentials Plus in the UK, SOC 2 that we have, you need to have some form of compliance, and software management is key in all three of those. So we'll help, like Cledara will help you get there as well. And at some point, you're going to have to, you know, need to consolidate. So knowing where you have duplication is important. And, you know, the final one is the buzzword of the year, I guess, is AI. I think the last count, there was something like 1,500 new tools a week being launched
Wow.
in AI. And people want to try things, but, you know, knowing what people are using is hard to manage. And making sure you have processes to manage sort of access and being able to see who's using what, whether it's approved or not, is important.
Super interesting. And you have mentioned that people want to try new things. So on that point, what's the best way to buy new tools for a company?
Yeah, this has come up a lot, and it needs change, and you know, procurement process, really. It's not as boring as it sounds. It can be quite simple to implement, but the key is sharing it across the business and being transparent about it. So buying software, you might have various stakeholders. You might just have one person who's the spend manager, and they just need to approve something. So have your policy, your documentation, slides available for reference. Show new starters when they join. Often when you hire someone in marketing, they want to bring in a few tools. Make sure they know where to go to buy things, and they just can't sign up for things and expense software back, for example. So if you look at the screen now, everyone really should have access to your application screen in Cledara. You can have user level access, so they can just see what's available in the company, and then that way they know whether the tool exists or not. So this list is everything that we would have, and it's searchable at the top. This is your first step. Then the next thing is search for what you're looking for. So search for a type of tool, and might be like Typeform or something you want to build. And you can see, oh look, we have Typeform. Handily, Katie's the account owner, so I can just click into it and get what I need, basically. If it doesn't exist, you can request a new application. So you just add in an application, search for something that you want, and it will probably be populated by our database of nearly every SaaS that exists. You fill out all the details. So why do you want it? What team you're in? How much it costs, etc. How much you think it's going to be. And then when you get to the bottom, you can see we have, as a growing business, we have compliance requirements. So we've added in our compliance questions that we need answered before we buy some software. And this can be anything that you need. So you as the ops manager, IT manager, can decide, right, what's the key information I need about software before we can say yes or no. So who's going to be using it? Is there a cost versus doing it in-house? Does it have SOC 2? How long is the contract for? Whatever information you need at the time of purchase, this is your decision-making information, should be included in this screen. And when it comes to you for review as part of our approval flow, you can say, yes, approved, no, I need a bit more information. This should be simple. We've kept it quite simple, but it's not a blocker. So it can be submitted without this. And then it's up to the decision maker to say, yes, it's fine to approve. It could be like Loom, fine to use. Or if it's a bit more complex, like a CRM, then you can say, no, not approving it. And you need some more information. And then we can keep all this information together. So we have our compliance module, and we'll use Typeform again as an example. We head into compliance, and you can see there we've got certifications listed. We have a business case, more details of the product or service, risk assessment. How likely is the business going to be to collapse if software stops working? In the case of Typeform, we're not in the form business, so not very risky. And then a contract review. So, we know when it renews, we know how much we're paying, who to speak to, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all stored in Cledara. And you can upload your contract, any notes in the applications and things like that straight into the application, and you have really everything in one place.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned approval flow. Any advice for the people that is listening to us today on how to set up their approval flow to stay safe?
Yep. So we have on our Cledara, for example, dual approval setup. So you have single approval, which is the first one. It can be for any application, so you can just say always. Or if you have a threshold that you want to keep eyes on, so anything higher than say 50 or 100 pounds, you can put that in and say if it's higher than 50 pounds, it needs to be approved by a team manager or an admin. Mm-hmm. And dual approval means two people need to have a look at it. And the second approver is, it could be your CFO, could be your head of IT, et cetera, et cetera. So we make sure that it's, for us, our CFO has the final approval on anything that we purchase.
Mm-hmm. And then I would like to also touch on something that we saw when we open an application that we see it is available in the platform. How about users getting access to those existing tools?
Yeah, we can show you that. So we have Katie, who's obviously got access now to the screen. She can kind of show you how to send an access request.
Yeah, sure. I'm just going to log in as a different user. So we mentioned before, just a moment. Mentioned before the user role being a really safe way to bring people into Cledara. So I'm just going to log into that different user role so you can see what your end users, your kind of average Joe users will see. Actually, it's a bit of a stripped back view and you see straight away the application. So as Nikesh was saying, you've got the list of all your software here and people should come in and check it. So let's use that Typeform example. They can go for the software directly, as you saw before. I just wanted to show you quickly another way your users can come here and search for a category. So let's say we want to look for form builders, just in case, we're using something other than Typeform. You could come here and search by category, so we can encourage people to do that. But let's say we want to use Typeform. So your users will see this very stripped back view, as you can see here, just the details and then the request access form. And simply click send request. As you see, we did this already yesterday. Now I'm the owner. I've logged in as this user, Bran. So this is replicating Bran, for example, making that request. Bran will be able to see under onboarding his own open access request and the status. So you can see that he's made a request to Katie and it's still pending. So it really is as simple as that. And let me show you then, I'll just go back and log in as myself as the owner of Typeform and show you what I see on the other side. So you can kind of see the process all the way through. So I would have received a notification that somebody wants access to a tool that I am the owner of. And you can see here under my tasks, here it is, an access request. I simply click on view the request. Here's all the details that I need. And I've even got the useful link that will take me out to the website of my software. So that's actually where I'm going to add my user. And then I'd come back and click approve. And I'm even going to get prompted to change the number of seats if it's a seat-based plan. And that's it.
Super interesting. And then I understand that we need to make sure that each application has an access owner, right? And then the teams are correctly assigned to make sure this process works as smooth as you just showed us.
Yeah, correct. I can show you here. Make sure your teams are all set up correctly and that everybody, all your applications have an owner. And you can even add that access owner here.
Fantastic. Okay.
And you can see there kind of like an example of onboarding and offboarding, which is one of our newer releases in the last quarter. So it's a good way, again, as part of processes and accessing tools and things like that, is keeping a log and track of who's been added to what, and who's taken that action. So we use that in reporting back for our sort of audits and things like that. You're always going to need to add people, new users, remove them, people who leave and move on. But if you want to know more about like onboarding and offboarding, you can head over to our webinar, which is on YouTube somewhere, or your CSM can help you out. And we'll post a link in an email somewhere as well.
Yep.
Sure. And also the community, the Cledara Insiders is a great place to find this information and also share process best practices and connect with other customers. So I would say we have covered quite a lot today. Can we run through a process checklist, especially for our customers, the ones that are on the call, to make sure they have a clear what to do and are not missing anything?
Yeah. Speak from memory. So add all your users to Cledara. So you can import them through Google Workspace. You copy and paste, I think, up to 100 people at a time, or import from Google everyone you want, and make sure they've kind of, at least they know they've got access to where they should be buying or looking at software from. Make sure your teams are set up correctly. So someone joins through our onboarding flow, you know where to onboard them to. Each team can have its own software stack, and that stack is maintained. So, the default, someone joins customer support, they need access to certain things. It should just be there. And unfortunately, when people leave, you know where to take them off from as well. Make sure your approval and dual approval flows are set up. Second approver should be someone in a position of authority to make sure they can spend money on behalf of the company. So could be your compliance team, could be your finance team, that, and each seeks approval from each other. And then we talked about sort of detecting software use, be it approved or unapproved. So what we call informal SaaS. Make sure the Cledara Engage extension is installed. So it works on all major browsers. You can do this through, if you're doing it for Chrome and you're a Google Workspace company, you can just do that easily through GCBM, Google Chrome Browser Manager, Google Cloud, one of the two. But yeah, that acronym should make sense. If you're not a Google Workspace owner, you can do it through Intune for Microsoft or anyone else, and your MDM can handle this rollout as well to manage your browsers. Making sure this is deployed will get you information pretty much straight away. And the final thing is making sure all your applications are listed in Cledara. You can do this when you start. As you buy things, you can import in bulk. We have a template when you import, so you can just fill in a spreadsheet. We can help you with that too. And just make sure, even if you don't spend through Cledara for that application, make sure it's there, and then you know who's using what.
Mm-hmm. And how do you go about implementing all these processes?
With a bit of difficulty, but Cledara makes it a bit easier, I guess. So turning off things that we've seen or things that I've seen happen is the first thing is probably turning off software as a claimable expense. That's working with your finance team and department leads to make sure they're aware of this and they can let their teams know. Software shouldn't be claimed as an expense. It's just not the right way to do it. And in this age, it should all be through a procurement process. Another tactic I've seen employed elsewhere when people switch over from the single card to a managed platform like Cledara, is that they have a window of time where they let people sort of declare what software they're using, and it can be imported and moved across. Could be 30 days, could be 60 days, however long it takes, depending on how big your company is. And then they turn off the card. So you just call up American Express or Visa or whoever it is and just say, just freeze my card and leave it like that for 30 days. And then sort of all the people who haven't declared their software will start knocking on your door and telling you, oh, this doesn't work anymore. And you go, yep, please add it to Cledara and we can see if it's needed or not. You'd probably save about 30% in software costs if you did it that way. Sharing and communicating. So wherever possible and wherever we make changes with IT and software at Cledara, we share everywhere, team meetings, all hands, department heads, a presentation in Slack, phone calls, whatever it is. We just make sure everyone's aware. And that way, most of your bases are covered. But also sharing the risks of not doing something. So not having a tool to manage your software. What are the risks? We need to keep the company safe. Everyone at some point will have a DPO. They need to keep the data safe. They need to keep the company, on side. And what happens with unmanaged software spend? It's already the second most expensive thing in a business. So we don't want to make it the most expensive thing. We're trying to, you know, make sure that stays under control.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting tips, and thank you for giving some structure that I'm sure is going to be very helpful for everyone that is listening to us today. What do you think if we jump straight into the questions that that the audience may have today? Let's see, because I think we already have a few. Do you want to take the first one, Katie?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a great question in, Nikesh, for you. One of the questions was about, you mentioned making sure all your applications are on Cledara. So how are some ways to make sure you have captured everything?
Good question.
Yep. So I guess the main answer to this is making sure you have Engage deployed. You can kind of do this pretty much straight away. And staying ahead of kind of like free tools and trials is the hardest part. Like Asana, for example, seen an instance where a team started using this tool for free. The Engage kind of activity went up and up, and then it's just became a conversation going, oh, I see you guys are using this tool. Is it going to be a real thing? They said yes. We did our due diligence and then added it onto the platform. The regular reviewing of your shadow IT, of your insights on Cledara, making sure you have a monthly audit, even as simple as putting a calendar reminder in for yourself. So just every Tuesday in the morning, just go through your shadow IT.
Yep, I've just flashed up the shadow IT here so people can see what that looks like.
Yeah. So, 1 or 2 visits is fine, but then when you start seeing, an entire team going to, we can see Airtable here, for example, in our data. So like, oh, cool. These guys started using Airtable. I need to have a word with them and see what they're doing. 1 or 2 visits, not a problem. Have a threshold maybe as you get bigger and you start learning more about what your teams are doing. Normally it'd be like 4 or 5 times over a period of 30 days. And you're like, okay, they're a regular user. It's not just visiting the login page where we pick up the data from.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for that one. We do have another question that has been submitted that says, what is a normal timeline for a growing company to implement all these processes?
Depends on how good they are. With our help, we can start helping them from day one. So, with the CSM team that you have here, and we've got a few others to help out, we start capturing data from day one. You roll out Engage, which, we've said it a few times, get that started as soon as you can, and start collecting that data. That stays for your company. But the other thing is making sure you make these processes engaging, like meetings, presentations. Everyone sees a presentation or a bunch of slides, but you got to make it fun. My approach is not to make it very, what's the right word? Draconian, probably. And provide people with reasons on why we're doing things and why it's important that we do this. It's not fun to do it, but it has to be done. So we try and make it fun.
And yeah, we can tell that this is exactly the case here at Cledara. And I was laughing while you were answering because this answer goes very in line with our next question. Someone has asked, how does the IT team balance keeping the company safe, but also being the IT support for helping your coworkers get the job done? How do you make sure you are part of the solution?
Yeah, it's like balancing a coin on its side. Quite challenging, but once you do it, it stays. I guess, yeah, making sure that there's a number of things we have to do to keep the company safe, but keeping it safe and also making sure we can, renew our compliance across the various compliance things that we have to do, not just SOC 2. We're a financial company. We have audits every month, I guess. So making sure we're aware of what's going on, keeping up to date with the latest trends, making the guides and the work and the changes that we have to make entertaining and as painless as possible. So before we make any changes, we test everything on test machines, and then it comes out to our teams. Sometimes we roll out by teams. You know, we have volunteer test groups.
Mhm.
Everything that goes out on the platform, for example, is tested extensively by our engineering team. So we make sure that everything stays safe, but also, you know, as a person-to-person interaction that it should be, not just, hey, do this. It's make it fun, make it interactive, be personable, tell them why you're doing something, be available for support, and don't scare people off.
Very important, very important.
Yeah.
We keep having questions from our audience today. So the next one says, is there anything that Nikesh would recommend prioritizing as we look ahead at 2024 to make sure that we are on track? This is a relatively new process for our growing team.
That's a tough one. I guess go through the checklist, but the most important thing, I guess, is knowing where you're spending money. So the top 2 ways to probably do that are to make sure you've got Engage rolled out. If you haven't, speak to the team. They can help. You know, I often jump in on customer support calls as needed to help. We can advise on pretty much any process that you might have or any setup that you might have. So yeah, just come to our community and ask the questions in there too, no problem. And the second one, what was the first one? I said Engage. Second one is making sure that all of your spend is logged. So add your applications. Even if you pay by bank transfer in the UK and Europe, we can cover that too. Just add it all in, and then we can help you make sure that it's that you're on track. And ask questions. We're always around, so yeah, we'll help any way we can.
Nice, thank you very much. And as you mentioned, the community, just to remind all our attendees today that if you're not yet part of the Cledara Insiders, the exclusive Cledara customer community, make sure you join. You should have received the link via email. Otherwise, contact with your CSM. We'll be glad to invite you and thrilled to welcome you there. We do still have a few questions that remain unanswered, but since we are close to the end of the webinar, we're gonna tackle them through the community or directly emailing the customers, because I see some of the questions contain some sensitive information, and we want to make sure they all get answered properly by our expert, Nikesh. So if that's okay for everyone, we can close it here. Thank you for joining us and for helping us, Nikesh, with sharing your wisdom today. And remember that this webinar will be available. It's recorded, and we'll be sharing the link with you shortly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Bye.